This is the last video for making the park map. So by now you should have probably created some ride icons, at least 4 or 5, and created the paths. In my example, I've just created the one that I showed earlier, and I've put a big black box that goes around the whole page. It doesn't matter that it goes over the edge, because that's going to essentially be a bit of print paper which we're going to cut out eventually. So I've put a large black box which I've put behind everything, and by behind I mean below in the layers section. So I'll hide that black box just so you can see what I'm doing, and I'll hide maybe, I'll leave it there for now. But so make sure all the other layers are locked, and make sure that we're working in the correct layer we want. Just a few tools just to show off really what Illustrator can do. I'm just going to use the rectangle tool here just to start you off. On mine I have a ride called the Smiler here, but I thought what would be quite good for you to do is actually try out the different tools that are listed under this menu here. It looks like this to start with, a finger, and it's got the tools are as follows: warp, twirl, pucker, bloat, scallop, crystallize and wrinkle. You can get a bit carried away with them, but essentially you can change the properties of them up here. You can take any vector and start to make changes to it. So in terms of warp, you can essentially does what it says it does. It actually warps the thing that you're actually trying to push around. Twirl creates a kind of twirly section. So, but essentially the main point to note is the end result of all this is that you end up with a load of vectors that are outlined and you can make changes to. So there's lots of them in there. I mean, crystallize is quite fun. It creates little kind of crystally lines that you can get off of it. And essentially that's essentially how I created in my little earlier one. That's how I created the little eyes. I used the warp tool, I think, to create the circles. So what else is left to do? Maybe a title. Just use the T if you want to put a title on. I've put a UR here, and these are the other, I very quickly made some little icons. I would like to think that maybe it's better when the text gets a lot larger, when you actually create large text. All I've done there is resized it with the free transform tool, which is E is the shortcut, and you can take things and resize them and so on. So really what you should be looking to do is put a title in, choose the right font that you want to go for, remembering that you've got some kind of theme that you're aiming for. Obviously I'm no longer doing rides if I'm doing titles, so that would need to go in its own layer, and that would be called not layer 5 but text. And then you might lock off the rides. So what I might do is put some text up here that says what this actually is. In the moment I am on black fill with no stroke, but you can change all those properties up here. You can change the font sizes up here. It only goes up to 72, which is about that big, and obviously you can choose a font that you find appropriate. Or just like before, you can trace bitmap on anything you want. So mine's called the X sector, so I'm going to write X sector up there. Might not go for black and white, considering I have a black background. I might just go for white text. So there's my white text. It says X sector. I'll put my black box back on, and once you've finished it, you can add obviously lots of little bits to it and change the font to your heart's content. The finishing touches are simply obviously to save your project, so at least you've got a saved version of it, but finally to print it. And we print down the bottom, Control P, and the printer you want to select is actually one of the PDF creators that we've got. I'm going to use Microsoft Print to PDF because it's on this computer. Essentially the other two printers are called Qt PDF Writer and Adobe PDF. They essentially all do the same thing, which is make a PDF, which is an electronic piece of paper which represents the finished product for this piece of work. The things that you will want to select in the print menu are fit to page, so that makes sure that the document fits on a page, and secondly you want to go to marks and bleed, which is this section, and put on trim marks. Essentially that's the idea, laying out where, if this were getting officially printed, that where the printer can actually print to, and shows you essentially how it would look when it was cut out. But that's the idea, and you can put on other things. This is meant for colour if you're doing magazines and so on, but we're not doing magazines, we're just doing a little map. That'll do for now. I'll just print it to PDF, and this is where you're going to save it. Obviously I'm going to save it in the same folder as my other pieces of work, which is in Park Map, and I'm going to save this as map. If I save it there, this is what it looks like when it's finished. I'll go find where I've saved that. These are the Illustrator files I've been working on, these ones, and this one, the PDF. Notice the icon is different. it opens up in a piece of software called Adobe Reader. And just like I said before, all of this information is going to be vector, so you can zoom in as far as you like on it, and it doesn't matter, the quality will always stay the same. So hopefully when you're finished, you'll have all the rides laid out there. The paths should hopefully go right off the edge of the thing and off the page, and you should be ending up with a kind of "you are here," and everything should be laid out in vector. And in theory, there should be no bitmap graphics on there, so you haven't put any pictures on there as such. So none of this essentially. No getting a nice picture of a bitmap and snipping it and putting that on your Illustrator file and leaving it in that format, because it just wouldn't work out very well. I don't know why that didn't paste in. Should have pasted it because I'm editing text. So let's paste that in just so you can see. This, leaving that there, would be a job not to do, but actually it's probably worth me showing you. If you try live tracing that picture, it won't come out very nicely because that's a color picture. You could try color 16 and live tracing it, but you end up with, on a picture that isn't very blocky, you end up with something that looks a bit like that, which although looks nice as a piece of water art, it doesn't actually look very good on your map, or it might not look very good on your map. But you can play around with these things and try them out and so on. And that's it.